Thanks to gentlelady. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Ezell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all three of you for being here today. You have a monumental task, and I have been a recipient of your assistance, but like everything else, there's always room for improvement. Ms. Criswell, it's good to see you again, and I appreciate you being here. As you know, South Mississippi is uniquely threatened by major natural disasters, and your agency is responsible for completing many of the recovery projects. One of the projects that I have focused on since my first day in office is addressing the flood insurance crisis. My constituents on Mississippi Gulf Coast are being hammered by the unaffordable flood insurance premiums under risk rating 2.0. On top of this, many families in my district are inaccurately included in a high-risk flood zone due to the outdated flood maps. Combining the high rise in flood insurance prices with outdated maps, people in my communities are being forced to move. My hometown of Pascagoula has been completely changed because of this. It's frustrating to watch, and it's beyond time that we get this fixed. I'm glad that Mississippi State Legislature fully funded a project to update the flood maps in partnership with Southern Mississippi Planning and Development District. This project has partnered with experts in the field to create more reliable flood maps. I understand the group has submitted to FEMA their findings and the data required to revise the flood map for the Mississippi coast. As you can see, this is a very important issue to me and my constituents. You and I both know that the success of these projects relies on good communications between FEMA, the review team, and the local stakeholders. Will you commit to making sure that all the groups working on this project are communicating properly?
Congressman, I will personally go back and check in on the flood maps that you just mentioned to ensure that they are being included appropriately into the risk rating calculations for premiums. And I would be happy to continue working with you and other members of Congress as we work on an affordability framework so everybody that needs flood insurance can afford flood insurance.
Thank you very much. My district is still dealing with projects dating back to Hurricane Katrina. And so I'm glad we're talking about why FEMA must effectively use its resources. This becomes more challenging when FEMA employees are forced to work on non-disaster emergencies such as the border crisis. What is FEMA doing to ensure the agency's mission is not causing further project delays, especially as the agencies work to address staffing issues?
FEMA has been continuously called on for the last several decades in supporting some of the non-Stafford Act events. Back as far as 2014 and again in 2019, and we are still being called on to support some of the non-Stafford events because of our ability to provide technical assistance and technical expertise in establishing a coordination and a collaboration function. That is the expertise and the skill set that our emergency managers across the nation bring to the table. That's what FEMA brings to our federal partners to help them with some of these challenging issues that we are facing today.
Thank you. Several cities have also complained to me about the long wait times between their request for reimbursement and the time they finally receive the federal relief money under the FEMA PA program. These loans can often be outstanding for years, collecting interest the entire time. In a high interest rate environment, this is very costly to the taxpayer. If this reimbursement money gets out faster, I believe it would help FEMA and communities save money by ultimately reducing the cost of these loans. Do you think improving and clarifying the interest reimbursement process would help FEMA and communities better utilize resources?
Well, we do continue to hear frustration with the length of time for reimbursement. And one of the changes that we recently made last year was simplify procedures by increasing the dollar amount for the small project threshold to $1 million. That is up significantly from, it was just under $200,000 before, which is the majority of the projects that people are waiting for reimbursement on. Through these new procedures, we feel that we are going to be able to get the reimbursements out into the hands of these communities faster.
Thank you. Mr. Berard? I'm sorry. And Mr. Curry, can you speak about this a little bit?
I can take that, sir. In our work over the years, we've been to every state and territory in the country, and a consistent theme is complexity of FEMA grant programs. You mentioned it. I know you probably still have open projects in the Mississippi Gulf Coast and Gulfport and Long Beach, and it's a consistent theme, and I think while there have been some steps taken to reduce some complexity in some of the steps, I think, an overhaul of the system needs to happen in order to sort of re-look at how we apply public assistance projects. I mean, the way it is now is that you do a damage assessment, and then for years and years later, you're basically going back and forth between the federal government and the state and the locality for small changes. That's going to have to change. The structure of that's going to have to change if this is ever going to get more efficient. And so I think that's what needs to be focused on.
Thank you very much. Thank you all again for your help and support. We really want to work together to get this done because, ultimately our people are suffering. And so thank you for what you've done and what you're going to do. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.